Well, good morning. Thank you, Rafael. Richard Martinez, Director of Public Works, the City of Corpus Christi. And that was a great presentation from the City of Austin. I just want to let everyone know that the City of Corpus Christi is just now going forward and moving for their street impact fees as well. So we've got an RFQ out right now to be able to start studying those. But today I want to talk about our street maintenance fee that we have. Next slide, please. So a little overview of what we're going to talk about today. Well, we're going to talk about, first off, our roadway conditions. So we've got to be able to tell that story. So why do you need a street maintenance impact fee and what you're going to do with it? So then we'll talk a little bit about how that fee was established and when, the classifications and calculations of the fee. Sarah will talk about those. She'll also talk about any adjustments and how those are accomplished. The applicability, so those people that may have areas that don't pertain to the fee and how that happens, the budget, what we use it for, and then hopefully we have some time to take a few questions. Next slide. A little bit about Corpus Christi. We're in a South Texas coastal city, way down near the coast. Our population is a little over 325,000 people. And our roadway conditions are in really bad shape. And when you see it a little bit in a minute, you'll see why our fee was important to implement, and our public was positively on board with it. Our infrastructure, we have a little over 1,200 centerline miles. So this is the same if you drive from Corpus Christi all the way to Chicago, Illinois, that amount of roadway. We're a little under 250 signalized intersections and a little under 50,000 traffic signs in Corpus Christi. Next slide, please. So let's talk about our conditions. So we put our street network in different classifications, all the way from excellent condition to failed. And if you see in the green, that's our area of focus and maintenance. So how do we stay in the good and don't let them drop down into the poor and the failed? You look in the poor and the fail categories across, those are in the bond areas, recapitalization areas. And so we've got to be working on how can we maintain our street infrastructure, utilize the proper funding, and be able to put the right maintenance techniques in place. And funding is important. So I retired from the city of San Antonio after 25 years, and there we were general fund. And so it was fluctuations based on the economy. Then I moved to the city of Fort Worth, same thing, general fund. We were toying around with a street maintenance fee. But again, depending on the economic climate and the political climate, sometimes that may be difficult forward. Coming to the city of Corpus Christi, I felt very fortunate that had already been established. But how do we continue that process? How do we tell the story again of how we're going to use the maintenance dollars and move forward? And how are we going to positively affect the network? You got to tell that story again. Next slide. So here's the story we tell. So coming here 9 months ago, we were at a 57. So a national average of the pavement conditions for a city our size should be no less than a 70. Well, in the city of Corpus Christi, we were at a 57 9 months ago. Today, we're at a 58.70. And with the dollars that they're giving us annually, we're projected in 2022 to be 63.09. And then we are just implementing our 5-year infrastructure management plan. When that's in 2026, we should be just above a 70. So again, very important to be able to tell the general public of what we're doing with the dollars in the street maintenance fee and how we're utilizing those things.
Hey, Richard, this slide and the last one, really great data. Did you perform that internally, or did you have consultants help you do all this?
This is internally with our staff.
Very good job. I'll have to talk to you more about those later. Very good.
Sure. So coming here, both systems that I had in San Antonio and Fort Worth, we had robust pavement management systems to be able to help us with that. Here, we're just now launching ours, so everything is manual. But over 25 years, we definitely have learned how to do this manually. And being able to tell the story is important, because when you establish a street maintenance fee, to continue the fee, you have to have public support. Otherwise, that fee is in jeopardy to be rescinded or not be renewed. Next slide, please. So when did the fee get established? So the fee got established on January 1, 2014. Council also inserted a 10-year sunset provision, which would be that we had to get it reapproved again in the 10-year marks. That means for us, we've got to go to council, be able to go and tell them what we're doing, how we're doing before June 25th, 2023, so that it can be reestablished again for additional funding. Now, it's important that you've got funding that is established, robust, and is continued so that you can plan for those later years, 5, 10, 15 years out. But this area of the establishment and continuation is very, very important in the fee. Next slide, please. So a little bit about our fee classification. So we have residential and non-residential. And then in residential, it's broken down by multiple areas. And in the next slides, Sarah is going to be talking about the specifics in each area. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Richard. So as Richard mentioned, we have residential and non-residential fees that we apply. So these fee calculations are based on 3 major factors. The first ones are established rate of $5.38. The next one is our equivalent residential units, or ERUs, and trip factors. So for residential properties, the ERU for single family residentials is 1. And for multifamily residences, it's a little bit different, and that's all based on our city records and appraisal district records. Our land use designation and trip factor rates are based on the Institute of Transportation Engineers manual, and that of course is established in our ordinance as well. So for trip factors for single family residences, the trip factor is 1. For multifamily residences, it's 0.45. So the city has adopted 2 residential land use and trip factors and 128 non-residential land uses and trip factors. As you'll see below, our residential fee calculation for single family equates to $5.38 per month per dwelling unit. For multifamily, the average bill would be $2.42 per month per dwelling unit. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. I'm sorry, go back to the non-residential. One note I would like to make is that the City of Corpus Christi has a team of people who also monitor any changes in land uses. And the reason for that is the trip factor will be changed based on your land use. So we have a great team who looks at new plats, new zoning to try to make sure that the land use is correct. So for non-residential properties, the ERU is a little bit different. It's not the standard one. To determine the ERU, we use the living area square footage, which we gather from our local county appraisal district. Per our city ordinance, we have that living area square footage capped at 118,000 square feet per meter. And that's important when we look at our big box stores that have multiple meters and are quite larger than some of that square footage. So once we get that square footage, we divide it by the median single family residential square footage, which is 1,500 square feet. That will convert the square footage to an ERU. Similar to the residential, we have our land use and trip factors all based on our ITE manual. Per our city ordinance, we do cap our trip factor at 5.78. For our non-residential customers, you can see the calculation below. On average, our non-residential customer pays about $74 per month. Next slide, please.
Hey, Sarah and Richard.
Yes, sir.
Neither of y'all, I'm assuming were you all there in 2013 when street impact fee was the street maintenance fee was adopted?
No, we were not.
I'm just curious if you considered, if maybe you know about the history of it, was anything else considered? I've seen cities use they use the length of right of way that they access a road. That, you know, there's alternatives to using square footage, and I'm just wondering if you settled on this one because it was the standard, or was there maybe another reason that the city chose to use the square footage and then ITE trip generation to charge the maintenance fee?
So there was a pretty robust, large committee that was put together by residents, business owners, other agencies, and that group looked at all of the different options and they chose what's implemented today.
So our ordinance does allow for some fee adjustments, but these are only applicable to our residential customers. So the City of Corpus Christi uses the current poverty guidelines in the U.S. Census Bureau. And again, it's only eligible for low-income residents. They're eligible for about a 50% discount on their fee for 12 months. After that time, our team sends them a reminder that their eligibility is coming back up within those 12 months, and they're required to submit the same information, the proof of income documents, to have the request renewed. Next slide, please. So this is who is not exempt from paying this fee, again, per our ordinance. All the properties that must pay this fee are within the city limits. They do have a living area square footage. Unlike some other cities, we do not exempt tax-exempt properties or nonprofit agencies from paying this fee. You do not have to receive other city services to be paying this fee. And an example for something like that would be a parking lot downtown. So a property that is not active, for example, is not a home that hasn't been occupied yet because it's a new build, doesn't have to pay the fee. But once it becomes active with its city services, it will be required to pay the fee.
So a question here, you know, property taxes, obviously we don't charge to the city or to the school districts, to the county, to the universities, however, the state universities. However, we charge them water. You know, there's a cost to water and we're just charging them a cost like anybody else. So the justification here is even with tax exempt properties, you're charging them a street maintenance fee because, you know, they have employees that drive on the streets to get there, right? But are you going that far? Do you charge the school districts? Do you charge, is there a, you know, state school in your, do you charge them? Are you charging?
Actually, I'd like to move to the next slide, and I think that'll answer your questions. So there are still some groups that are exempt from paying this fees, just like you mentioned, our ISDs. We have a large port in our area, so city, county, state, and federal entities, as well as our hospital district, are exempt from paying this fee. And this is all per our city ordinance that was adopted with for this fee. So again, properties outside of the city limits aren't required to pay this fee. Again, like I was mentioning before, prior to your certificate of occupancy, new homes are not required to pay this fee as well.
Do you charge those entities water?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Do you think there would be pushback if you tried to charge them a street maintenance fee?
You know, again, we were not. There could be some, and I guess once this ordinance was being developed, that probably came into the discussion. So it leads me to believe that, you know, this was probably a good middle ground to establish this fee. Next slide, please.
So I want to talk a little bit how we utilize the fees. So of course, an operating fund is important. So anything we do with maintenance and administration, but an important one is planning and engineering, which Sarah is over. And so she's just recently developed an engineering team to be able to design in-house all of our maintenance projects. Before we had to have consultants do that. And so we're also being able to utilize our fee more efficiently. And then also for maintenance is big. And you see to the right, so over the last 9 months, we've developed 2 in-house paving crews. So they've paved more than 30 miles of streets in the last 6 months in Corpus Christi. So improving our programs is important. And then of course, looking at trying to put in a pavement management system. So there's a lot of things we use our fee for, but mostly is for maintenance. Next slide, please. So this is an important slide. So our budget for this year is $78 million. And you'll see on the top left in the orange, you'll see the street maintenance fee, and we collect a little over $11.7 million in that. But you see the blue circle in the middle is street maintenance. So we've got some general fund, we have some industrial district funds, and some regional transportation authority funds that go into this entire area. but that $11.7 million is important to continue the paving portions of our roadways. We have CIP funds that you see in the middle for arterials and collectors. And then another one that I want to really point out is on the right-hand side, you'll see the Residential Street Reconstruction Fund. That one is been established with our citizens voting for a property tax increase. Right now, we have a 4 cents tax right now, and it's strictly for residential street reconstruction. And we have 2 cents. We were able to raise that an additional 2 cents in the future with council approval so that we continue that process. So it's a multifaceted approach at street maintenance. Yes, the street maintenance fees helps us for the maintenance component part of that. And then we have reconstructions over in another area so that we don't take away from our maintenance area. And then of course our bonds in the center, we look forward to do the streets that you saw that were below in the red and orange. So it's again, utilizing all the funding sources that are out there and every funding source around that. So we have multiple funding sources to be able to help us do that.
So if I'm making sense of this, so the bubble on the left, that is your total street maintenance cost to the city is 33 million. And of that, 12 million is being funded by the street maintenance fee. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So why is it not, why only a third? Why is the street maintenance fee only funding a third of street maintenance?
Well, because when they looked at the fee, you know, they looked at what was going to be applicable to our citizens and what would be, what could they pay? And yes, it does not cover the entire area, but it assists us to do that. We still got to have about $15 million of general fund to be able to afford what we need to do as far pothole patching, base and pavement repairs, overlays, those type of things. In the future, we're looking at trying to see if we can justify some additional fees to that. But of course, you know, with COVID and some of the things that are going on in the economic climate, it's not been something that we, you know, really want to take on at this point. When that sunset provision comes up in 2023, we're going to be evaluating this during this time frame to see what we can cover. But we also don't want to have an undue burden on our citizens. It's important that, you know, we don't put that in place and it causes some issues for citizens that are out there.
So just to drill down a little more, was it a political decision not to charge the full amount you could? Or was it something else? It was legislative, you know, statutory restrictions or something that don't allow you to recapture, don't allow you to pay for all the street maintenance costs?
No, it's not statutory. So looking at that, council, from the information that I got from council, was they took a look and said what we were able to fund through the general fund, and then looked at that amount and struck a balance between the two.
So they said, we're not going to charge, we're not going to pass all that on in a street maintenance fund. We'll look, you know, maybe a third of it we'll charge.
Exactly. So just an example, we've looked at it to double the fee, what the revenues that would bring in. But then they also looked at, okay, if we did that, what was that going to do to just a single family that is, you know, working paycheck to paycheck? That additional, you know, $5 to $6 could affect them.
Can you remind me again, what is the cost per month for a family, for a per residential unit?
It's like $5.38 a month.
And is that charged with the water bill, with the utility bill?
That is correct. It is charged with the water bill.
$5 a month. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. It's you know.
Well, if you look at it, there's almost $12 million of funding that's there that's not associated with the general fund. So you can plan those out as you're looking at your funding sources.
You know what your breakdown is on, if you took your street maintenance fund, $12 million, what % of that's coming from non-residential collections?
Sir, could you answer that?
Roughly, you know, is it like 60-40 or 70-30?
It's around 60-40.
60-40 commercial residential.
Yes.
Yeah, and we've got about 95,000 accounts.
Okay.
All right, next slide, please. So with that, that's our presentation, and I don't know if we have time for questions, but we're available on the chat if you need some.
Richard, Sarah, fantastic job. Really great information. And again, same with Leanne. I hope this is not the last time we can talk to you. I hope we can get you over here to, you know, at some point, come down, visit Laredo, get some better Mexican food over here. And I'm just teasing. But That was great. That was great. I know it's just after 10:30 or 11:30, and we only plan to go this long, but are there any questions from any of the staff for Leanne or for Richard or Sarah on the street maintenance fee or the street impact fees? We've got quite a collection of individuals today. I'm really glad to see so many of our staff here. We've got our budget director. We've got representatives from our utility department and from our traffic department. We've got transit here. We've got planning and engineering departments represented. So we've got a lot of great staff here. Does anybody have questions for anyone? Well, hearing none, let me just say again, thank you very much, Richard, Sarah, and Leanne. We really appreciate your time. This is something that's going to be recorded, and I would, we're really going to push it out to everybody to watch this. And we are in the very beginning process of just getting this information out and developing support for these ideas. And we really want to stress, which I'm sure you've had to stress in your communities, this is not about getting more money for the city so that we can gold plate anything. This is about, we are dropping in Laredo below the adequate levels of service because we're not paying for maintenance. We're not paying for the adequate, we're not sizing things adequately because we can't fund them adequately. So we're falling below an acceptable level of service. And so these are strategies that allow us to more effectively charge. And Laredo is it's a city with a lot happening economically, but we're not capturing that value in I think as fair a way we could. And so both of these strategies are ways that we could do that. And I think that, equitably assessing fees is something that's a really important goal for us here in the city as we move forward and continue to grow. So thank you very much for your time, and thank you everybody for making time to attend. We'll put these videos out on YouTube and we'll send them out to everybody. Does anybody else have anything they'd like to add? If not, we'll go ahead and end it here. Thanks again, everybody, and have a great lunch. And we'll see you tomorrow at 10 a.m. for another session, and where we'll be talking about transportation reinvestment zones. Thanks, everybody.